A lot of people are afraid of the word therapy, and people shouldn't be afraid of the word therapy, because what therapy does, it actually helps people increase their emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. Because the reason we go to the doctor, and the reason we have stress, and the reason we have so many issues, it has to do with emotions. It has to do with something we feel. Yeah. So emotions and feelings, I keep saying, are the two different things when we dig down into it. But and why is that important? It is very important because we make decisions based on how we feel. We don't necessarily make decisions on well, oftentimes we make rational decisions and all that, but 95% of the decisions we make, they're conscious or unconscious. And a lot of, when I talk about decisions, I talk about reacting versus responding, as well as major decisions. They're made emotionally. They're based on how you feel about certain things. So therapy is not there to, is there to help you recognize what upsets you, to help you understand how to process. And it's true there are some therapies better than the others. There's no doubt about it. Out of every profession, there's some better than the others, but emotional intelligence has been a requirement for a lot of years, and with all of the evolution and the acceleration through which we go through nowadays, it's difficult on everybody, and not to mention all of the technological advances, and only that puts undue stress on everybody. I mean, I know how much stress I have because of technology. And if you look at your cell phone, you have about how many apps. And if you look only at the language, at different apps, you will notice that the same language, it's not going to give you the same command, it's not going to give you the same output when you click on a button that says, click here, do something, whatever the name of the button is. And it's becoming, it's hard, right? It's very confusing. So even the definition of the words, it's important. So therapy helps you, therapy and coaching as well, helps you understand the difference between different words, and it helps you understand the neural language and how some terminology might be used, and certainly is going to help you reframe the situation, people, events, and all that. Because sometimes we're just so overwhelmed with what we have to get done, and there's so many things to do that sometimes we don't have time to think of a different perspective. And if we reframe, it's called reframing, if all we do, we allow a different perspective to come into play, it's going to add ease. Yeah? It's going to decrease your stress, decrease your anxiety, decrease your overwhelm. And I mean, we're not going to expect that that's going to take it all away, because you want some excitement in life, whether it's positive or negative. Boredom leads to a lot of troubles like war, or violence, or drugs, or, boredom is the biggest issue in life. But understanding that each coin has two sides, then maybe you can just reframe and look at a situation from at least two separate aspects, and allow that to help you increase your emotional intelligence, because intelligence has to do with knowing, knowledge. So knowledge about your emotions, and when you begin to understand your emotion and how you process and what you feel, because not everything you feel and not everything that upsets you comes from outside. That is such a misperception, and people get upset over with their family, with their spouses, with their children, because they have had a hard day and because they're overwhelmed. Then they end up in an argument with their significant other or their family members, and then they think that it's the family member that caused the upset. 99% of the time. So when we understand that it's not only the external event that causes the upset, that there is a lot that happens internally that causes most of the upset, we can pause a little bit and begin to bring the attention to breathing, bring the attention to your feet, to have that ground you. And then within a couple of seconds, we don't need more than a couple of seconds, after a little bit of practice, you begin to realize that that person in front of you, they have some sort of upset too. They are going through an overwhelm as you are going. And then instead of entering an argument, you can just have a discussion with them and say, I had a bad day, I'm overwhelmed. I need a mental break. So nowadays, even employers and a lot of employers are invested in offering mental breaks at work. So that was something never heard about 5 years ago, before the pandemic. Nobody knew before 2020, nobody knew that people needed a mental break. So the good thing that comes out of all of the difficulties and overwhelm and the heaviness of the pandemic is that it brings into the awareness of what is needed. So mental breaks are needed, right? So before entering into an argument, let's count to 5 while you listen to the other. Maybe you listen and you don't hear. I don't know how the situation is going to play out. But let's take a breath and count to 5, and just remember that the other person in front of you is going through something too. You're upset about something, they're upset about something. And it's going to go much better if you're going to say, I'm upset about this and that, and this is how I am upset. And then the other person might say, well, this is how I am upset. And then you go, well, this is how I'm overwhelmed today. And then the other person is going to say, well, this is how I'm overwhelmed, and so on and so on. So we can't always have the other person rescue us from being upset. It's just that it doesn't work like that. I mean, it used to work when we were babies and children, and mom and dad and caretakers would come over and took care of us when we cried or when we're hungry. So that left left a significant pattern as an expectation to come and be taken care of when you're upset, and a lot of us are not conscious of it. And this is something so very simple, something that is just imprinted in childhood, and this has gone on for many years for that pattern to imprint in the subconscious. So therapy is very important. Waiting 5 minutes and acknowledging your emotion and down-regulating and acknowledging, reframing and acknowledging the person in front of you also has emotions. But then therapy is also very helpful. And coaching has has been flourishing for the past couple of years because not everybody has a diagnosable mental illness as an ICD, and Rennie is going to talk about more about that. A lot of people are simply overwhelmed. So then coaching comes in the play and reframes that. A lot of neuro-linguistics. Neurolinguistics is made out of the best pieces of psychology. Just having a different point of view, just having a different perspective, having someone to talk to that can keep things neutral and balanced, even just that little bit helps. If you don't want to go to therapy, if that's a big stigma and a big issue for you, try hypnotherapy, try coaching, definitely try talking to someone. But sometimes if you don't have someone to talk to, well, we have support groups. I have support groups on Facebook. If not mine, so many other support groups. So, Randy, you can definitely tell us much more about the mental health as a diagnosis point of view, and lots that goes behind the scenes with the insurance and Medicare and Medicaid and all that, things from your experience.
You mean in terms of how the process works, sort of, so to speak?
Whatever comes to you that you think it's helpful for people to know, especially people that have stigma around reaching out for mental health.
Yeah, I mean, therapy, I think you make a good point, Carmen, that therapy has got sort of a bad rap. Don't need to be like Charlie Sheen, back in his heyday. And that means they need to go to therapy. Therapy can be just to go because you're not happy. Life isn't going right for whatever reason. Or that you feel stuck, or that you're not sure what the purpose of life is. Why are you here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, there could be lots of reasons. Not sleeping well, you have a lot of pain, health isn't well. All that is good, is welcome for therapy. And therapy can help that. I'm talking about talk therapy primarily, but medicine helps too. One of the things that I think is a misnomer is that that things can be fixed with pills. There's a great book that I read a few years ago called The Myth of the Magic Pill, and that happened back when Prozac came out. Prozac wasn't the first, but when Prozac came out, it was on the cover of Newsweek magazine. It was supposed to have revolutionized everything. There was going to be no more depression. Depression was over. And it was over. Not only was it was over with the taking of a pill. Until that meeting. And that was 30 years ago. And here we have more depression now than we've ever had. What happened? Well, there's just like you said, Carmen, there's just a lot of complications in terms of what makes up a person's mental health. I'm not, talking about the diagnoses and all of that, I have never been somebody that likes diagnoses. If a person goes to go see a mental health professional and wants to file an insurance claim, which means that they want the insurance to pay for some of it, then they're going to have a diagnosis. There's no other way around it. Yeah. And it means, technically speaking, that they're mentally ill. If you get a diagnosis from the Diagnostic and Statistical the DSM is what I'm trying to say, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Psychiatry, then you have technically a mental illness. And it sounds horrible, but technically that's true. And if you want to have insurance pay for it. Now, some people don't want that and do not want a label put on them, and I do not blame them one bit. They would have to pay out of pocket. They can do that and not file with insurance. And there are places that will see people without on a sliding scale, paying out of pocket. There are places that can see people that can't afford the full amount. But yeah, it's something that it's a necessary evil, in my opinion. And but you know, that's very debatable. That's one man's opinion. Lots of people think that is the only way to do ethical therapy is to get a diagnosis. So it's very controversial. But anyway, somebody should know that they're going to have a diagnosis, and it's going to be a medical code that the insurance company's computer's going to read, and it's going to pay a certain amount for it. So yeah, that's the basic choice. Insurance covers a lot of mental health issues and therapies. There's like 300 or 400 different types of therapies these days. Some therapy it covers, some it doesn't. It doesn't cover hypnosis, for instance. And, you know, it's just very weird, Carmen, because hypnosis is one of the most effective treatments there is, and it's scientifically proven over and over. It's been studied for 100 years. It's indisputable that it's one of the best therapies for lots of problems. Not everything, but for a lot. And insurance companies don't pay for it. It's insane. It's not covered. Some do, but most don't. So that's just one of the little hiccups there. Having said that, most people, as you know, Carmen, go to a hypnotist, 4 or 6 times? They don't need a lot of long-term therapy. So they don't even have to do the insurance thing. It doesn't cost them. It didn't cost $5,000 or $10,000. You know, they can go and maybe pay $500 to a hypnotist and get some very good work done and have a lifetime of improvement. So lots of times I will hear people talk about things I wish I could. I can't just for various reasons, but I wish I could recommend hypnosis. I was talking to somebody who was struggling with what's called phantom pain, which is pain in a limb that they don't have anymore. Frequently, it's like a leg. They lose a leg. They lose part of their leg, and the brain will not believe that the leg's gone, and the brain will tell the person the leg that isn't there is killing me. It's killing me. And what a miserable thing, because you can't fix it. I had some surgery done on my nose, as you know, Carmen, a few months ago, and it left me with some dead skin on the top. Not dead, but the nerves haven't grown back yet. And underneath it, it'll itch sometimes, and it's like, I can't scratch that itch. And that's the way phantom pain is, except it's horribly painful. But hypnosis works with that. Hypnosis can do that. Instead, she's having to talk to a surgeon about getting surgery. So, anyway, I encourage anybody to at least talk to a therapist. If they're struggling with something, at least talk to them once. A good therapist will talk to them on the phone for 10 or 15 minutes, no charge. Let them know what the cost will be, what the recommendations are, what they suggest. They may say, come in for 1 session, and we'll go from there. If a therapist doesn't do that, a counselor, therapist, psychiatrist, whatever, psychologist, I wouldn't go to them. So the other thing, I don't know if you want to discuss this, but part of the problem these days, I was talking to somebody trying to get an appointment with a therapist. The first appointment this therapist had was in September. First opening.
Yeah.
It's just so much needed. There is a lot available through local like nonprofits, and the only thing I would say is somebody doesn't have insurance, they can't afford $100 an hour, most of us can't. Call 911. Call 411. It's United Way in every community, and they will tell you of a sliding scale clinic where, oh, well, these are state clinics. These are state people. The best therapist I ever knew worked for the state. That's no joke. Much better than private practitioners. Not everyone, I'm saying, but I mean, the ones that I knew that worked for the state were as good as the ones that were in private practice. They were some of the best therapists. So, yeah, and people paid them $5 an hour.
Yes, you bring out a good point. The best therapy I ever had, it was all paid out of pocket and never paid out of insurance. And I've had a lot of hypnotherapy done in my life, and I had a lot of neurofeedback therapy done, and that was the best therapy ever, and it was life transforming. I mean, my life took a 90-degree turn, and my life took a 90-degree turn so much so that I became a hypnotherapist myself. But what I want to bring out from because mental health has such a bad stigma attached to it, we need to understand the definition and the root of the words, not the popular use of the words. Psyche, what the psyche is the human soul, the mind, the spirit, is that which cannot be touched tangibly, right? It's going to be touched by emotions and feelings. So psychotherapy has to do with your mind, your spirit, your soul, your heart, not your physical heart, like cardiology, right? So, and then hypno is related to sleep, but not in a sense that you're asleep when you're asleep at night and you don't know what's happening. And raising emotional intelligence means taking it out of what you are not conscious of and bringing it to the conscious awareness. And this is what hypnotherapy is doing, this very quickly. Because hypnosis doesn't put you to sleep. But if you fall asleep, you've been tired that day, then that's okay. You can have the next session, right? But the hypnotherapy, it relaxes you very deeply, so you get to focus on one issue at a time and go and resolve that issue. And it is first, let the issue present itself, because the subconscious is it's so intelligent. The subconscious mind is that which runs your body. It runs your blood in the veins, it runs your oxygen, it runs your neurotransmitters and all that. It's not your conscious mind that does that. It's your subconscious mind that does it, right? So in hypnosis, the subconscious mind is, it will bring up to you ways that are good for you to increase your emotional intelligence, to become aware of your processes. And once you understand, once you become familiar with your processes, then you go, oh, I can reframe this. Oh, that's how I've been looking at it for 20, 30, 40 plus years. Oh, that's not healthy. That's not bringing me any happiness. It's like, oh, I can reframe it. Yes, you can reframe it. Oh, there's another perspective. Yes, there is another perspective. So, and another point that some people are afraid of hypnosis because there's hypnosis got a bad rap, and I understand that hypnosis has a bad rap. That's not all right, but if we are to compare hypnosis to surgery, yeah, we have certified surgeons that they put you to sleep and they cut inside your body and they go inside your physical body, not to kill you, not to hurt you, but to help you heal something that's troubled, right? So, on the other hand, you have non-surgeons, non-medical professionals that will use an object, a knife or whatever object, that they can use it to go inside your body and really hurt you. So it does happen, right? The same with hypnosis. You don't want to have hypnosis with someone that claims they're going to solve your issue in one session and that's that. That's not realistic. You want to check that person out, check out their testimonial, see if you resonate with them, have them go over with you the process of which, like Randy, you mentioned the process earlier a little bit. And yes, there can be bad surgeries, but only by non-trained professional. And you can have bad hypnosis by non-trained professionals. And
even trained. I mean, sometimes it doesn't fit. I mean, it's just not a fit. I mean, it's not bad necessarily. It's just not a good fit. But there are bad therapists too. I mean, there are therapists. I don't mean ones who are just highly obviously unethical, but there are some that are, I think, are poor, have very little training. They get the degree from college, and that's it. That's all the training they get. If I were looking for therapy, I'd want to know that somebody at least had some training in something after graduate school. A lot of people don't, but a lot of people do. So I'd want to know what they were trained in and what kind of training they got, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Those are very legit questions. And if somebody's if I'm talking to somebody and they go, well, I don't know why you're asking me these questions, then I'd write them off. I wouldn't go to them.
Yeah.
A legitimate, careful, concerned therapist is going to understand those questions and answer them.
Yes, and you bring out a very good point, Randy, with the training. And I want to mention that I'm trained with both me and you are trained with the best hypnotherapy school that is in the U.S. of A, the Milton Erickson Foundation School of Hypnotherapy through the art of psychotherapy. And but I am also trained in the spiritual practices as well. And a lot of people go about having hypnosis done by a spiritual practitioner, and a lot of good can come out of that. But if someone is not trained into how the subconscious works, into processing traumas, a spiritual practitioner would not necessarily know how to deal with that, and they might say, oh, your shadows and your triggers are coming out, and you created this for yourself and all that, and that's something I really don't recommend.
Yeah, I think the biggest danger with people who are spiritual healers, quote unquote, is the danger that they pose that a person has a problem because something is spiritually wrong with them. They're not being honest with God. They're not leading a godly life. There's something spiritually wrong with them. And if they could get right with God, their problems will go away. I mean, some of the more radical ministers will say that has to do with illness. That a person's sick because, they're not close enough to God. And so, yeah, that's one of the biggest dangers, I think, like you're saying, Carmen. I mean, it's just a spiritual, that's danger that a person can think it's my fault and I'm not letting God heal me, kind of thing.
Yes, you bring out such a good point, and it's very important. Dealing with guilt and shame and the stigma of having to go through overwhelming, especially trauma, and to have someone tell you that you've created that yourself before you have had a chance to go through medical, officially recognized training. I want to caution everybody about that. And again, I'm going to mention again, I am trained by the hypnotherapy school of the Ericksonian hypnotherapy school, and I'm also trained spiritually as well. I'm also trained in neurolinguistics, so I know the difference between these various approaches, and I do not. People come to me for spiritual therapy, spiritual hypnosis, and I do not approach it up until I don't run a diagnosis. through the Ericksonian and neurolinguistic type of way, just as we have been taught in the intensive classes, all of the intensive training that we've gone through. So, and once a relationship is established between me and the client, we can begin to discuss spiritual avenues for that. But even within that, I'm very carefully on how I word everything and how I present everything, and I have the ability to explain spiritually related concepts like fifth dimension and night wave and things like that. I am able to explain that in at least both ways: psychological and spiritual and emotional intelligence type of a way, in a way that it makes sense, in a way that people can understand something. Mm-hmm. Because Randy, you're right. I mean, we don't get ill and we don't get overwhelmed and we don't get anxiety because God doesn't love us.
Or being bad.
Yeah. Or because God is upset with us.
Right.
God is not a punisher. So having that a lot of people are dealing with high anxiety that are rooted in religious concepts and that in a very old tradition. And I've been talking to you many times. I mentioned to you what a wonderful country United States is, because it's such a multicultural part. And in United States, there is no a very set in stone type of a tradition like with all the countries. Like, I come from Romania, and I know about my Romanian culture that has so many traditions that are set in stone, and then if you don't follow the tradition, then you're not Romanian to begin with. More so, something is wrong with you because you're not following the tradition. So it's very important to know that no, God is not upset with you. That if you go talk to someone about what's heavy on your heart, if you go talk to someone about why you have anxiety, if you go talk to someone about wanting to understand why don't you get along with people, why are there so many arguments, because sometimes it's as simple as understanding that we function, we behave in different modalities throughout the day. At work, we are in a type of modality, in a particular type of a behavior, and then we come at home and we have to shift gears. For example, if at work we are required to be aggressive as salespeople, right? When we come home, at home we're not required the same aggressiveness, and we better not bring that aggressiveness at home. Or if at work we are a manager or a supervisor or someone that is in charge of leading people, that requires a specific pattern of behavior. But when you come home, you have to disengage from the specific pattern of behavior, because it's going to help you diminish your overwhelm, and then it's gonna flourish your relationship at home, and then everybody's going to be happier if just by being aware that we do engage in modes of behavior, in patterns of behavior. Some call it, wearing the hat, wearing the boss hat, or the mom hat, or the child hat, or whatever. So that is also good to bring to the awareness.
There's an article. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but there was about a month ago a divorce attorney. It might have been a TED Talk. I'm not sure. Anyway, a divorce attorney gave the top 5 professions that are the most that will lead to that are the most prone to divorce, because it's exactly what you're talking about, Karma. The people who they can't shift the roles from what they're doing for as a profession or at work to what they do at home. Military people is one of them. A military officer who has hundreds of people saluting them and jumping at their feet all the time goes home and all of a sudden their kids flip them off and that kind of thing. So
Yes.
That's a good point.
And it also, in addition to professionals like that, switching out of the professional role, professional pattern of behavior, there's also, we have deep-seated beliefs and values. Religion is one of them. Tradition is one of them. And if we begin to understand that our children are not going to have the same values with us, especially with the evolution, with the acceleration of consciousness, our children do not have the same values, and we cannot force them. I mean, we can try, and a lot of people have tried, but it puts undue stress and undue pressure on both you and the way you parent the kids, and then you're not going to get along with the kids, and then it's going to be more heartache. And you don't want it because you love your kids, and the kids love you, and of course there's going to be arguments. If there is a family without disagreements, I don't know about that. The family is supposed to call you out, and it's good to have a family that calls you out and gives you feedback, and because it helps you increase your emotional intelligence. Like, oh, that's what I'm doing, I wasn't aware of it. Mm-hmm. And although they're going to do it in a form of criticism, maybe you're just going to have a family meeting and say, hey, let's not just criticize each other all the time, let's just feedback. So giving feedback to someone as opposed to criticism and pulling their eyes out or pushing them down or treating them as a doormat or things like that. Feedback, because family it's the backbone of any society, any culture, and even pets, they feedback you very, very well if you know how to pay attention. Randy?
Oh yeah. For sure, yeah. Pets have, they can be just as much a part of the family as anything else, as any human.
Yeah, especially kitty cats. You know, dogs are built to please humans. They're built to receive commands. Kitty cats are not. Kitty cats are very independent. And you cannot make a cat do what you want to do.
They're independent in a very dependent sort of way. I mean, they get very used to a person. And as you know, you've got cats. I mean, they get very used to routine and who's there and who's going to feed them and all of that. But yes, they're very, very into. They don't show any loyalty. They're not going to do what you want them to do.
No,
but they will love you.
They show loyalty. But when I'm trying to get to the relationship part of, you know, a cat giving you feedback, when you're upset and go when you're angry, for example, and a cat might just run away from you. Mm-hmm. Eventually, they will comfort you, but a cat doesn't do what you want them to do. They will only do it because they want to do it.
Right.
So if you know. So if you know how to please a cat, you know how to down-regulate, you know how to control your emotions. I mean, it's as silly as it is. And dogs too. Dogs will feedback you, but dogs are built to please you. Dogs are built to give you feedback. But that's not what we want to stress. I don't know how we arrive here, but that's not what we want to stress upon. We want to stress upon on making sure that you build a feedback system with your family, with your loved one, with your friends, and there's a lot of feedback going on at work. The boss tells you when things needed to be done differently, right? So even with that at work, it's not easy to receive that feedback, and it puts a lot of undue stress. But if you try listening to that detached, understanding that the boss has a job to do themselves, then you can begin to ask questions, better questions, and understand the requirements. How does the boss like to have that done? Does it like it with vanilla? Doesn't want a strawberry? Doesn't want a cherry on top? Things like that. Now, there are unreasonable bosses too, but they are stressed. Something is going on with them. They are overwhelmed, they are stressed, their health is not good. Something is going on with that. So if we understand that, we can just take a step back and not take it personal, because the boss is not at work. We're there to work. We're not there to fluff our identity, right? So if you need your identity fluffed by the bosses at work, that's a difficult path to navigate.
Well, and you know, a lot of trouble that happens at work that somebody has is frequently a reflection of unresolved issues and family issues and that kind of stuff that's internal, just like you started off talking. It can be that your boss is difficult or demanding or irrational, but the issues that come up, how they handle them, and how a person handles them, almost always are reflective of some type of unresolved issue that often goes back to the family, to the original family. And that's where hypnotherapy can help, because those kind of conflicts and those kind of those feelings that don't make sense are subconscious and come from long ago problems and wounds, and hypnotherapy can help address that. I don't mean to sell hypnotherapy. A lot of therapy can do that, not just hypnotherapy, hypnosis. A lot of it can, but since I just got trained in hypnosis, I'm more excited about it. But a lot of therapists can do that. A lot of therapy can do that.
Yes. And you bring out a good point. For some people, talk therapy works very well. Mm-hmm. And for some people, talk therapy doesn't work. I mean, some people, there's nothing to talk about. They don't want to talk about it. But all therapists help you get down to your process, mm-hmm. help you figure out ways that are good for you. And when it comes down to patterns that have been rooted in your subconscious, in your automatic behavior, in your habits, in your reactions, in your expectations, in your likes and dislikes that have been rooted there for a long time, since childhood, since adulthood, since throughout your past. It doesn't have to stem from your childhood necessarily. It can stem from past employment. It can stem from a past relationship. It can stem from a natural event that we have no control over, like the pandemic, for example, or a hurricane, or a earthquake, or whatever. Right? Hypnotherapy helps you with that very, very quickly. Right?
One of the things that
oftentimes, let me just do this. Oftentimes, the conscious mind, the linear part of the conscious mind, it's so busy in trying to figure out why. We're so preoccupied with why. And the fact of the matter is that why is important only to you. The why is not important to anybody, only to you. And stressing over why, it's a long path, and it's less ease. And if we begin to focus on how will just bring you, it will just open up doors of possibilities, and you begin to look at things differently. And when you orient yourself towards how, you will begin to get answers. And soon enough, you will recognize that why is not as important. Now, when you go to the doctors and you have an infection, that's very important to know what the infection and what bacteria, so we know what antibiotic to administer to that. But when you go to hypnotherapy, for example, why that happened, it's not as important, it's not as relevant as how it happened, because how it happened has to do with the processes that are running the programs in the back of your mind. It's running your automatic habits, your reactions, and all that puts undue stress and pressure on you. So this is where hypnosis gets to the root of the how of those processes, and then as hypnotherapists, when we are oriented towards your processes, and we use your way of processing to reframe, to release that trauma. Everything is especially in Ericksonian hypnotherapy, everything is personalized, so to speak. We utilize all of your resources, and we turn negative resources into positive resources. And this is one of the best aspects of Ericksonian hypnotherapy, which is also very permissive, and it's very flexible, and is the most permissive type of hypnotherapy there is. Milton Erickson has revolutionized hypnosis. That's why Ericksonian hypnotherapy. Randy?
You said just on the tip of my tongue. I know what I was going to say. Yes, what you're talking about is an excellent point. It is the basis of a book I just finished a couple of months ago called Process of Hypnotherapy. And he talks about it's the how, not the why, and not the what, but it's the how. And it's interesting thought from a hypnotherapy viewpoint. How his emphasis is, as a hypnotherapist, what are the patterns that we do that create or solve problems, and that's what a therapist can help them do. A hypnotherapist. It's really interesting. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yes, because if you think about it, when we are upset with someone, when we are upset with our significant other, or we are upset with the boss at work, or our children, it's not as much about what or why. We are upset with how they're presenting it, or how they did it, and not as much as why. The why is very important to you, only for you understanding why you are reacting the way you are, and understanding that you can, instead of reacting, you can respond. And by increasing emotion and intelligence, you increase responding behavior as opposed to reacting behavior. And that simple thing, it takes a little bit of time to learn, This is something that we should be taught in school, but we are not. In school, we're emphasized on intellectual knowledge, but it is actually the emotions that drive our well-being, in addition to physical health, that a lot of it is just genetic, autoimmune, acquired, outside events, circumstances, accidents, things like that. But how HOW, it's definitely the most important variant.
Going back to what you started off with, one of the things that I've been really encouraged by has been more and more people talking about going to therapy as if it's an okay thing to do. There was I think it might have been, I don't remember who it was. Anyway, she was can't remember who it was. Anyway, it was a famous singer, and she was talking about the struggles that she had with her when she was some struggles she had with her husband, who's an actor. And I can see her face, I can't remember her name. Anyway, she was just talking about how, this is a woman or a person who's very talented, very well rewarded in this world, major star, worshipped by millions and millions and millions, and seems to have everything. But she has to go to therapy because she can't deal with some of the things going on in her marriage. And I think that's a very positive thing. She's one of the judges on one of those TV shows. Anyway, so it's a very positive thing to hear that from more and more people who are in an area of being influenced or influential. I mean, that that it's okay to go talk to somebody to try and work out some of the struggles that keep a person from living a happy life or an acceptable life or a fulfilling life.
You bring up such a good point, Randy, because as humans and having to pay the bills and having to pay the mortgage and the car payment and the school loans and pay for the food and the clothing and the shoes and kitty cats and puppy dogs, we're so oriented towards acquiring physical wealth. We're oriented toward making good money, hoping that the money is going to solve all of the problems, and and then people become attached to this, and then I'm very grateful to all of these famous people that are telling us that fame and lots of money doesn't bring you happiness.
And adoration and even talent and all that. Yeah, they can have what seems to have all. Katy Perry is who I was trying to think of. She was the one that was bringing this up. And have all these because she's a big proponent of mental health, and have all these things, talent coming out of their eyeballs kind of thing, just very talented, and still feel like something's wrong. So yeah.
Yes, and the thing about the trained professionals, I mean, there's just so many. When people are they're oriented, they spend a lot of their resources on making money or becoming famous. They put aside their self, their spirit, their heart, what makes them happy, and even like in this situation, people with a lot of talent, they do what they love, and they go for it, but in the process it takes so much more than doing only what you love, because there's so many other requirements in that process. Like me, for example, I have to learn technology to be able to do all of this. And it's technology. It's not as simple as most people think. So that's why professionals are equipped to have you understand your emotions, and professionals, like I particularly like to take to go over the values and prioritizing values and reminding people that you've achieved financial success. Now what? What are we doing next? Are we going to continue to stress and stress and stress and don't sleep at night and don't eat well and don't take care of yourself to continue to achieve financial success when your heart is aching? So, and sometimes people need to hear that. It's need to be reminded. You know that people need that deep down inside because they're unhappy. But it helps to be reminded and just go, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, that's important. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. We're going to say goodbye for tonight, and we'll see you next week. And make sure to send us your questions, your comments, your feedback. And I love when people send me feedback, but they usually do it in private. And I'm happy to receive all of the feedback. And we are happy to be here, to be of service and guide you to your well-being through increasing your emotional intelligence.